under the Adventist Christian Schools Western. So even though Carmel, there is a kindy to year 6 and a year 7 to year 12, they're on 2 different campuses at the moment. So we're unique in the fact that we operate a kindy to year 12 school. Now, the decision to actually turn Landsdale into a high school was made about 10 years ago. So we're actually quite young in that space, but we are hoping to grow rapidly. Currently, we have about 160 students in the school, and they're split fairly evenly between the primary school and the high school. And we have about 30 staff that are actually involved in operating the school. So we have 21 teachers and education assistants, administration staff, grounds people, and also we have a chaplain. Pastor Guy Seegers is our chaplain, and he's very heavily embedded in the running and operation of the school. Our focus at the school is the development of the whole person. So we're not only interested in academics, even though academics is a measure of how well a school is going in the eyes of the world. We believe that there's more to a person than just how well they perform. That being said, academics are something that we are highly focused on, making sure that our students achieve. We are also very interested in them becoming balanced people. We want them to learn to be good Christian people, good citizens. But we want them to live a life that is based on values that are based on the Bible. So it's not just good enough to be a good citizen. We actually really want them to engage with an understanding of the Bible. Our underlying focus of the school in everything that we do is to make sure that these guys who come through our school get to meet our friend Jesus. So that is the number one focus. So while we're trying to get them through their academics, while we're trying to turn them into great citizens, etc., we just really want them to fall in love with Jesus. We have just recently finished, almost finished a building program. So I just wanted to show you some photos of the new addition to the school. This one is what we call Block C. I was told by someone very close to me the other day, it sounds like because we have A block, B block and C block, so it sounds like it's a prison, but it's not really. But this is some pictures of our new building. This is C block. We've only just moved into this and had some some classes in it. We have a new beach volleyball court. A lot of people raise their eyes when they sort of walk past that, but our kids absolutely love it. You know, they've had access to it for probably about 6 weeks, and they're there at recess at lunchtime, getting themselves covered in sand, dragging all of that sand inside into the carpeted rooms. It's just wonderful. But it's really nice to see the kids engaging with some of the facilities that we've been able to provide. We've also upgraded our driveway. So for those people who haven't been to Landsdale Christian School, you are more than welcome to drop in anytime. But for those people who have, they will appreciate this. The road is now straight, and we have paving and parking, and it's actually very, very nice. And the last one is just some photos of our students in one of the classrooms. So all of the classrooms are lovely, nicely carpeted, air-conditioned, well-appointed. So we're very, very proud of the building that we now currently are using. As I mentioned before, academic excellence is something that we want. Now, academic excellence is actually a little more than just getting straight A's. Many of you, it's been a while since you've been in school. Many of you not so long ago. But you also know how hard it was to get those A's. In fact, some of you, it wouldn't matter how hard you worked, you were never going to get an A on the report unless you doctored the marks. And I believe that an F can be turned into an A with just a stroke of a single pen. But there are some students who are never actually going to achieve that. But what we want, as far as academic excellence is concerned, is for kids to do the very best that they can. So if C's are all that they can do, then that's great. And we celebrate that achievement with them. However, if the child is capable of an A and they're producing C's, that's when we're a little bit less satisfied with their progress. But we want our kids to do the very best that they possibly can. We've had some very good results from our Year 12, our leaving year over the last couple of years. And I just wanted to mention some of those things. So our children are succeeding well. When I went through Adventist schools, and yes, it was a long time ago, you can tell by the colour of the hair. It used to have colour, not this colour. But to go to an Adventist school, you had to sacrifice good academics. It was just a done thing, you know. You went to get a Christian education, but you sacrificed good marks. That's not the case anymore. Things have changed. The world has changed. Adventist education has changed. So, for example, our ATAR scores. ATAR just means that it's from a student who wants to go into university. An ATAR score starts at 0 and then goes through to 100. So the highest ATAR score that you can get is 100. In the last few years, our top ATAR score has been 96.3, which allows that student to pretty much do anything they want. So this particular person had the desire to excel, and we were able to support him on that particular journey. All of our Year 12s last year received their WACE certificate, which is their West Australian Certificate of Education. It means that they have met all of the requirements and satisfied the conditions of being able to say that they have been educated and they've performed well. Last year, we had all of our Year 12 students who wanted to go to university, which was all of them, offered positions at university. We had one young man who was provided a scholarship, a principal scholarship to study at Curtin University. We had another young man who took the top award for his particular subject in the state. So our kids are doing very well. And we're very proud of the results that they've actually been able to obtain. We also like to acknowledge our junior school. So a third of our school a couple of weeks ago received certificates for having more than 50% of their marks as A's or B's. And we want to acknowledge them, and we want to support and encourage them to do their very best. Fundamentally, we believe that Landsdale Christian School is God's school. And we dedicate it to Him regularly, and we want Him to set the direction for the school. We want Him to be able to set the sails. And we actually give Him permission to push us out of the way if we get in His way. And that's an understanding that we have with God. And when He says, get out of your way, who are we to stand in His way? If you'd like to turn to your Bibles, this is the NIV version, but if you have your own Bibles and would like to have a look at this particular passage, it comes from Luke chapter 5. We're going to read verses 1 to 11. So I'll just give you a few moments to find those verses. The story is set on the Sea of Galilee. Jesus walks up to the water, and there's some fishermen with their boats on the shore. And He approaches one of those fishermen and says, "Oi, take me out into the water," because the crowd was pressing. And it goes this way. One day, as Jesus was standing by the Sea of Galilee, the people were crowding him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put a little from shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything, but because you say so, I will let down the nets." When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' feet, knees, depending on your translation, and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken, and so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on you will fish for people." So they pulled their boats up onto the shore, left everything, and followed him. The interesting thing about that story is the fact that when these fishermen were working in their own strength, they caught nothing. Then Jesus came along and hopped into their boat. And then they went fishing at the wrong time of the day, in the wrong part of the lake, and yet they caught an abundant catch. At Landsdale Christian School, about 50% of our students come from non-Christian, non-church families. There's only about 15% of our students who are actually from Adventist homes. This gives us a huge opportunity, an enormous opportunity. Because here we are entrusted with people's children who haven't yet been introduced to Jesus, and yet here they attend our school every day, allowing us to be able to introduce them to our friend Jesus. What an awesome opportunity that we have with so many young people to introduce them to our friend. You see, why do I tell you this story? If we allow Jesus to be the head of our school, to get into our boat, we can fish at the wrong place, at the wrong time, and yet still obtain an awesome catch. I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity of coming and sharing with you this morning. So thank you for the invitation. So thank you to Seth. But I also want to thank you as a church for lending to us, both Gillian and also Seth, over the last few years, because these guys have actually have been on our school council. So they have also been helping set the direction of the school, and Seth is currently a member of council. Unfortunately, his tenure is coming to an end, so I'm hoping that we can extend that with the session that will happen this month, in a couple of weeks' time. But I want to thank you for his service and thank you for allowing him to come and work with us at the school. But I have some homework, because teachers always want to leave homework, because I need your help. And I'm going to ask you to be able to do a couple of things for me. And they're listed up there, and we're just going to work down through each and every one of them. Okay? I need you to pray. I need your prayers. I need you to pray that Landsdale Christian School is God's school. I need you to pray that God will set the direction of the school. I need you to pray for the fact that Landsdale Christian School will become a beacon in the community there, so that people will be drawn to the school because they can see that there is something that is different. I want you to pray that God will send people to our school that are in line with His plan. And I, most importantly, want you to pray that He will bind the hands of the devil and his angels so that they have no place in this school. Thank you. Just before Emmeline steps up and speaks, we're just going to have a quick word of prayer. So let's just bow your heads. Hi God, you are just such an awesome God, and we are so thankful of who you are, what you have done for us, and for accepting us exactly the way that we are. As Peter and Emmeline step up to speak to these people, I know that they're a little bit nervous. I just ask that you will draw close to them. Wrap them in your arms of care. Help them to be able to relax. Help them to be able to speak clearly so that they can represent you well. Amen.
Can I move this closer? Okay. Hi guys. I'm Emmeline. Before I start, I want to make some disclaimers. I'm a bit nervous, so bear with me. And some of the photos, they look good on my computer, but they might be a bit pixelated on the screen, so please do not judge. Okay. So, I'll be talking about unlikely heroes. So, that's my pink slide. So, let's just get into it. Okay. So, the theme is unlikely heroes. So let's start off by, what is a hero? When I think of heroes, I think of the typical young person dreams. Superman, Batman, the Avengers, but I don't know if that's just because I'm young. But if we ask Google, it will say, a person who is admired for their courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. Now with this definition, I can think of a genuine nice person, loved by many. I'm pretty sure you have someone pop into your head. So, for the past few months, I've been searching for these genuine good people. True hero stories online, but I've realized they're all the same. But don't get me wrong, I applaud these people for what they do, but they aren't unlikely heroes. So, in my psychology class, an idea struck me. So let me explain. In psychology, we are talking about personality, a very cool topic personally for me. To do this, we are watching a movie, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. For those of you who don't know The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, he is a young boy who was a bit different from the others in Whoville, their town. He was raised in a family and went to school. However, during the time of Christmas, the Grinch had his last straw. After constantly being bullied by his peers, he had his last straw. Whoa. Yes. The class went too far. The Grinch noticed he was a bit different, a bit hairier, a bit stronger, and a bit green. So, to fit in, the Grinch shaved his face. As a 6-year-old young boy, I would assume it would be very hard to shave for the first time. No practice and no help. So, it turned out a bit rough. You can't see the photo, but on my computer, it's good. To fast track the story, he went to school and was laughed at, not only by students, by teachers and his crush. The Grinch went into a rage, threw things around, and ran away to a mountain, which had a cave, which became his new home. So, The Grinch spent his years in hatred towards all the Whos, and the Who spent their years in fear of him. Every Christmas, the Grinch would make mischief in town. Small things like messing with their mails, but it was efficient enough to stress them out. So he got his revenge. Now, life went on and he met a little girl, a very genuine little girl, Cindy Lou. She expressed her opinion that no one should be alone on Christmas. However, no one listened. Friends and family were so caught up on the idea of presents, big buffets, and the brightest Christmas lights in the world. And why wouldn't they? That's what Christmas is about, right? So let's fast forward again. She invited him to a festival to win a prize. Everything changed. He seemed included for the first time. They participated in things like tasting food, beanbag races. We can all say it was a good afternoon. Till he received his reward. It was a shaver. And everyone laughed at him. The Grinch left, furious, and that night an idea struck him. A sleigh, a Santa costume, and everyone's presents were gone. A bit dramatic, a bit petty, but I guess a bit expected. 2 times on Christmas, he has been embarrassed by the Whos, so he blamed Christmas itself. The biggest festival then the Whos in Whoville held valuable to them. So how can this relate to us? The Grinch saw the true meaning of Christmas. He even may have enjoyed it. So why did he make himself hate it? It's simple, really. It's because of the Whos. Not because of who they are individually, no, not because she talked too much and he smelt a little bit funny, but because of how they were celebrating and sharing Christmas. Christmas is a celebration to get together with family and friends, spend time together, have fun, and appreciate one each other and life. However, the Whos saw it as a time to rush for the best presents, compete to who had the better Christmas lights, and make it a big festival. It's like they lost sight of the true purpose. When the Grinch stole the presents and virtually ruined Christmas, as the Who stated, they blamed him for pulverizing and ruining their Christmas. Then, Cindy Lou's father stated, "You can't hurt Christmas because it's not about the gifts, not the contest or the fancy lights. I just need my family and my friends, and I'm happy." The Grinch was moved by this. I think this is something that happens within Christianity too. This is my opinion as the Grinch, as the outsider personally. I feel as if sometimes Christians get so caught up in the tradition and rules of Christianity, they forget about being an example for the outsiders. I love the concept of Christianity, their values, to love one another, to be kind to one another. For a love so unconditional and pure to send your only son to die for people who are just pure bad. But not till recently have I been more comfortable with Christianity. It took me a long time to see some past Christians, and I hope you guys don't take this personally. As I grew up in church, I've had many Christians say some hurtful things to me due to me making a mistake or just being unsure in my faith. I've been told people can't be nice if they don't have faith in God, or even if I do my washing on Saturday, I'm a bad person. I've also had many trying to force it upon me, which I think all it did was bring me away. I believe that Christians forget that when Jesus came to earth, he wasn't like, "No, you didn't follow this rule, that's not right." In fact, many of the religious people at the time didn't even like Jesus because he was attending to the people with sickness, who were unstable, and people who didn't even believe in him. They felt betrayed because they have been living their life off his commandments, and he was attending people who didn't. But Jesus didn't just leave those people behind. He helped them. Jesus says, "A new commandment I give you. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you. By this all will know that you are my disciples." So we have a role as Christians, not to get so caught up in the rules, not to get caught up in how weird or lost someone is. Rules are important, but we shouldn't live off them because we sin. It's inevitable. If we share love to one another, the Grinches of the world might venture a bit closer to being another follower of God. Sometimes it's good to have Grinches in the world as a reminder as to why we were put here, to help us not stray from our purpose. The Grinch, personally for me, was the unlikely hero, as he helped people remember the truth about Christmas. But you can also be a hero by being that one person to stand up and say you are included and you are loved, like Cindy Lou. So which hero will you be? Thank you.
Sorry about that. So yes, as you know, our topic today is unlikely heroes. And yeah, let's just get started. So the man that I want to talk about today is David. So David was a young shepherd boy, and he knew nothing about war or combat. He was probably around 15 to 19 years old, and he was quite young, didn't know anything about life. Yeah. He was also the youngest out of, I think, 8 brothers, and he was the son of Jesse. And being the youngest, it kind of made him a little bit overlooked and neglected. And oftentimes, yeah, he was just left aside when the big stuff came around. And so, anyways, that's the little backstory of that. And next part, eventually, Israel was at war with the Philistines. And David's eldest brothers had gone to war and all that, and they were fighting against the Philistines, and they came across this giant named Goliath, and all of Israel was terrified because he was strong and he was scary, and they all ran away and hid like cowards. So, and then at the moment, Jesse, David's father, told him to go send food to his brothers. So on his way, he heard the giant calling out to someone who would fight him. David was obviously confused and went immediately to the men of the valley and asked, "Why aren't you fighting him?" All the men obviously answered and were like, "Look at him, why would you want to fight that?" And David was like, "But we have God on our side. We have the literal creator of the universe, so why do you need to fear that?" So, and obviously his eldest brother got mad at him and was like, "What do you know? You're just a little kid. You know nothing of war." So David replied to him and said that he would be the one to go fight Goliath. So a little bit later, David then goes to King Saul and asked if he could be the one to fight Goliath. Obviously, Saul was a bit humored by this and was like, "What is a youth doing here? What the heck?" So David explained that God had been with him multiple times before when protecting his sheep, and he had fought off both a lion and a bear and killed both of them with just a sword. So David said, "Surely God would be with me with this Goliath, just as he was when in those times of need." So Saul, persuaded, was like, "Okay, sure, let's try that out then if you really want," and gave him some armor to try on, but it didn't really fit him and it looked a bit oversized. So David just said, "As long as I have my slingshot, God will help me." So then on his way to the battlefield, he picked up 5 stones, and not because he was like, "Oh, I might need spares if I miss." In fact, it was because Goliath had 4 other brothers, so he was ready to take on each and every single one of them with just 1 stone. And anyways, eventually he goes down to the valley where Goliath was standing, and again, Goliath was humored by this, obviously laughing and be like, "Are you sending me like a mouse to a dog? What is this?" So David just said that the Lord would deliver him into his hand and that he would be triumphant and bring glory to God's name. And after that, David slung his sling and it hit Goliath's dead center in his forehead, bringing the giant tumbling down. So David was the hero, and yeah, he basically saved all of Israel from having to serve the Philistines. And the reason that I want to highlight David was because he was very unlikely. He was a very unlikely hero. And no one expected him or told him to go fight this Goliath. Everyone expected him to stay home, tending to the sheep of the field. And God could have very much used Saul, the king of Israel. But the reason God chose David was because of his undenying faith in God. David chose to choose his faith in God because he knew that God would be with him. And even the king of Israel didn't even have that much faith. So that's the premises of that story. Next person that I want to talk about is Rahab, which very interesting story. But Rahab lived in the city of Jericho, which was placed in the promised land that was given to the Israelites. But unfortunately, Jericho was kind of in the way of that. So basically, Joshua, who was the new leader of Israel because Moses had just recently passed away, he sent 2 spies into the city of Jericho, disguised as probably like merchants and all that. And as this verse says, Joshua 2 verse 1, and Joshua son of Nun sent out 2 men to spy secretly, saying, "Go view the land, even Jericho." And they went and came into a harlot's house named Rahab and lodged there. So the interesting thing about this was Rahab was indeed a prostitute, or a harlot as they called it back then. And they came across her house. It doesn't tell you how or why, but they just did. And eventually, the king's guards come searching because apparently they had some word that people had entered into their city. So, as Joshua 2:6 says, but she had brought them them to the roof of the house and hid them under stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. So, as the guards came, she hid them underneath these stalks of flax, and as soon as they passed away, then they came out of hiding. And Rahab then basically pleaded with these guards and asking if God would save her and her family from the coming destruction. For she had heard of the many things that God had done and the many miracles that he had served Israel, such as like the parting of the Red Sea and even destroying the king of Egypt. So her faith in God, she asked if they would be willing to also let her escape the coming destruction. So the 2 men agreed, saying as long as she kept their promise and didn't tell anyone about them, and as long as she kept a red cord or a red rope out her window, God would know that her house would be untouched. So after that, the walls of Jericho came down because the Israelites were told to walk around for 7 days, once every single day around Jericho, with silence, not a word to be spoken. And on the 7th day, they walked around Jericho 7 times, at the end raising a shout and playing their trumpets. And at the end, the walls of Jericho came tumbling down, except for one house, which was Rahab's house. So the thing that I want to highlight here is Rahab was a very, very unlikely hero. And if it wasn't for her, the 2 men wouldn't have been able to get back to Israel and report back to Joshua. And basically, what I wanted to just highlight again is she was a prostitute. She was probably the person that you would have never thought in a million years God would have chosen. And I think from both these stories that I want you to gather from is that God can use anyone. And it doesn't matter about what we think is good or bad, or what's happened in someone's life, oh, they're not worthy. But God always has a way of challenging the conventional views of society. And as long as you are willing to put your faith in God, that is all that matters to him. And it doesn't matter about your ethnicity, your religion, your sexuality. God can use you. And that's what I want to leave you guys today with. Just to remember that God can use anyone, including you and me, and sometimes even a Grinch. Just want you guys to remember that and keep that for the rest of the week and possibly the rest of your lives. But thank you for listening, and have a nice day, y'all.